morning, good afternoon, and for those of you across the pond, we do get a few of you, good evening. And welcome to Webinar here in good old Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Randy Hawthorne. I am the executive editor of Nonprofit Hub, and I have with me today Chad Barger, who's out of Pennsylvania.
Hi, Randy.
How are you doing?
Awesome.
Good, good. The thing I was talking about is we never used to use our video, and I'm on a computer that is not positioned well to be on video, but here I am. I'm going to leave here pretty soon, and I'm going to let Chad do all the work, and then I'll be back a little bit later. If you have any questions, you can put them in the question box, and that's on your that's the best place to go with that. And we will be recording this. Yes, indeed, we will be recording this. So no need to ask. We're going to be recording it. It's all good. So with that, Chad, I'm gonna let you take it away and give us a little info on social media today.
All right, Randy, thanks so much. Really appreciate you having me. Really appreciate all the great resources you and the team at Nonprofit Hub put out there. I encourage everybody, if this is your first Nonprofit Hub webinar, go check out all the resources, great stuff. I send people over there all the time. So thank to you and the team. So I'm gonna hop right in here. Social media, finding your social media sweet spot is what we wanna talk about today. And I've kind of, I was asked to do this a number of years ago at the Association of Fundraising Professionals International Conference, specifically at the Peeps Nest in the expo hall, where the social media gurus kind of congregate, and they wanted kind of this back to basics session of, instead of how to do Instagram, IGTV, or how to do a Facebook Live, how to stream, let's go back to basics. And I really approached it as, okay, this isn't the time where we're learning how to use these tools anymore. We know that. It's the time where we need to think if we're using these tools the right way. Are we using them as they're intended? Are we actually putting things out in the right format and telling our story the right way that's effective? Or are we just doing it because we think we have to do it? And that's really where we centered around this. And it's centered on this stat I found that 97% of nonprofits regularly use social media to engage their supporters and donors. Anybody surprised? Right? No, 97%. So we don't really need that how to do social media for nonprofits anymore. We need that how to do it the right way, how to be the most effective with that. And those of you that know me know that I'm a bit of a personal productivity wonk, guru, nerd, whatever you want to call it. Everything I do, I like to be, as efficient and effective as possible. So that's the approach with social media. That's what we're going to do. So 97% are using it, but there are tons and tons of examples of just not using it the right way. Just kind of doing what I often call the spray and pray approach, that we're just shoving it out there, where it looks the same on every single channel, and we're just doing it because we think we have to do it, or a board member wants us to be on this channel, these kind of things. And that's what I want to get away from and really focus our efforts and get the biggest bang for our buck on social media. What does it look like when we're not using it the right way? Well, I have 3 examples I'll share. First of all, here's a example, Twitter. Actually, I believe this is Facebook. So did you miss out on our January newsletter? Here it is if you did. And then we give a link. And then our image, it's just foundation update. It doesn't get me excited. I don't want to click that link. I'm just going to scroll right through. We'll talk about what probably happened here a little later when we talk about some other tools, but something else that doesn't look great. Here we head over to Twitter. All right. What happened here? Well, I'm kind of protecting the guilty a bit by blacking things out, but they're selling t-shirts on Bonfire, which many of us are familiar with. Common site, but they just hit the tweet button in Bonfire, and this is what you get. You don't even get an image of the t-shirt. You're not even talking about what you're raising funds for. It's just shirts now available. Well, I might love this organization, but if you're not going to show me the shirt, I'm not even going to click there. You got to do a little more. We got to be a little more strategic. Then over on Instagram, here's a wonderful organization doing a concert, but in Instagram, it's all about visuals and it's got to be striking. And what did they do? They just took the flyer, converted it to an image, and posted that as their item. No, give me like the performers engaged. Give me that cool image at the top, just that, something to make me want to click. So in all these situations, they were moving too fast. They weren't thinking strategically about what they were doing. And in the end, probably did it for, very little return. Here we have 4 likes. This one had 1 heart. I always say it was probably the person that posted it, And over here, yeah, just 1 like. This is not effective. This, we shouldn't even take the time and bother to do it. So this is what we're going to try to fix today. In this quick hour, we will have some time for Q&A at the end. So go ahead, use that chat box and put it in there. Randy's going to help me out with some questions at the end, and we will get to those. But we're going to talk about finding your social media sweet spot. And here's the formula. It's the formula I'm going to walk you through today. We're going to tell the right story on the right channel in the right format. Tell the right story on the right channel in the right format. We need to get all 3 of those things right. And we're going to take them one at a time as we go through. Real briefly, give you a little background on who I am and why I'm up here talking to you today. I think a little bit of context always helps. I like to know who my talking heads are that I'm following these days. I'd love to be with you in person, and hopefully we get back to that someday. But I'm a career fundraiser. That's all I've ever done. Had the honor to serve on the front lines with the organizations you see in the top row. I'm a CFRE, a master trainer with the association. And these days, I spend my time working primarily with small community-based organizations through my own firm, Productive Fundraising. And I have the honor of teaching the fundraising courses at both Temple University and Messiah University. That's me. I'm a fundraiser. And most importantly, at least for this presentation, is I'm a member of the AF Peeps. So this is the group and within the Association of Fundraising Professionals that really focus on social media and using it for fundraising and helping others. If you've ever been to the international conference, we always do a brief seminar series. I help to coordinate that. I'm not the thought leadership here. I'm the corraller of all the gurus and the cats, but I'm a sponge. I absorb what they say. Folks like Josh Hirsch and Julia Campbell and Jim Anderson and Alice Ferris that are really out there and testing these things and talking about what's working. That's where all of this is coming from. So great work, and I'll reference some of their thoughts as we go through today. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're done with that boring introductory stuff. Now we're going to talk about the right story, the right channel, the right format. And then finally, I want to close with boosting engagement, because none of that matters if you don't get engagement. Every single channel, the algorithms reward and are focused on engagement. So we're going to get the right stuff out there, and then we're going to talk about how to get people to engage with it and really get more bang for our social media buck. And then finally, some successful examples, because that's what I find nonprofits always are looking for: samples, examples. How are other organizations doing this? How can I adapt that to make it work for our group? And then finally, we'll close with that Q&A. And look, I actually have the numbers in the right order this time. I'm notorious for not doing that, so good day. The question I always get, Randy addressed the first one: are we going to do a recording? Yes, Nonprofit Hub will have that for you. Some folks prefer the slides. You want a PDF of the slide deck? Yes, you can have that. So the slides and any resources I mentioned, I'll talk about a couple templates and a few things today. They're all available on my website, productivefundraising.com/resources. So that's really the only note you need to take today. You'll get the recording from Nonprofit Hub, and the slides and all the resources are on this page. You can check them out later. So be sure to scribble that down. It's just right at the top. Look for today's date, Nonprofit Hub webinar. Everything's right there, and I don't need an email address or anything. Just click, it'll download right to your desktop. I don't play those games, and we'll go from there. So let's dig in. The right story. Tell the right story. That's what we're going to talk about first. And the key word here is story. Story. That's what we need to be telling. Not boring facts, not tons of pitches, stories. And when I say story, what's your organization's story? A lot of nonprofit professionals resort to our mission statement. What's our mission statement? And I don't know what your mission statement is, but many of them are not exactly the most exciting thing in the world. I love this slide. Tom Ahern shared this in a presentation probably close to a decade ago now. I snapped a photo, but this is what the typical nonprofit mission statement looks like. Blah, 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 since 1958, our founder's vision. We get some jargon in there, sustainable, all that kind of stuff. It's not exciting. It's usually boring. It's usually way too long. They're usually the biggest run-on sentence ever. And when we say telling our story to board members, a lot of times they think they actually have to recite this, that I have to recite our mission statement. That's not what I'm after when we're talking about sharing the organization's story. Mission is not your story. What is your story? Well, you've seen it, countless presentations, everybody talks about it. The old elevator speech. I like the elevator speech for this, but I don't want a boring standard elevator speech. You know, the standard elevator speech is you're in a elevator, you have 60 seconds to say what you do, your story about your organization before everybody gets out, all right? I want it simpler than that. I live in a small town in central Pennsylvania. You know, our elevators are, I think the tallest building's 10 floors. So that's a quick, like 15-second elevator. So what's it look like? Here's the super simple elevator speech. We help who so they can do what? Let me tell you about someone. We help kids who grow up without the best circumstances so they can have better lives. Let me tell you about Monique. We go right into that story. We help families who don't have enough food on the table so they can thrive in life. Let me tell you about the Smith family. All right, that simple thing. What are they going to remember about that? They're going to remember that story. They might not remember your organization's name. They might not remember exactly what you do, but they're going to remember how you helped someone. How do we help someone? That's how we need to talk about. And that's what we need to talk about on social media as well. That's what resonates. That's what's going to make people want to click and come back and engage, tell those stories. So I have this super simple elevator speech as a template on the resources page. It's actually set up as a worksheet with some spaces. This is a wonderful activity to do with your staff, with your board. Let them fill in the blanks, the who and the do what, and then share some stories and get everybody telling that same simplified story, but a really good activity to help center your organization around your story and your message. So those stories, my friend Josh Hirsch, one of the AF peeps, people don't care about things. People care about stories. People care about emotions. Tell the stories people care about and it will make people care more. Great quote. I loved that. It's exactly what we need to do. Most of our content on social should be stories, sharing the story of our organizations, sharing the stories of people we have helped, letting them tell our organization's story is essential. So story time, and anytime I can insert a shameless photo of my kids in a presentation, I will. This is many years ago now, but it's story time. So here I am doing the night before Christmas on Christmas Eve. It's a treasured tradition in our family, but we have a story-based culture. We connect through stories. So you need to share stories too. What's the characteristic of those stories? This goes for everywhere, not just social media. So our stories are the basis for all nonprofit communications. They should be a compelling story about one person, place, or thing, ideally a person. You tell me about the 500 people you helped last month, I can't really relate to that. But you tell me the story of one person, one family, I can relate to that. And my $100 isn't going to help what's really going to do for 500 people, but it can probably do a lot for one person. So simplify it down to one. Do rich detail, create that vivid picture. You know, on social, that's where visuals really help. Show me the person if we can, or show me the situation. Brings up a solvable problem. I already said, not the 500, the one. That's what we want to do. And in telling the story, who's the hero? Who's the hero of our stories? Not the organization, the donor. The donor is the hero. You know, Tom Ahern says it. Many of the gurus in the field say, make the donor the hero of our stories. Man, having trouble with the O's there. Make the donor the hero. All right. What's that look like? Well, it's a language switch. We need to use you and your at least twice as much as my, we, and our. When we switch that in our language, it becomes centered on the donor, not the organization. So things like, without you, none of this would have happened. Without your help, we wouldn't have been able to step in and get Monique the help that she needed. Because of you, boy, when I was learning to do this, I had a little post-it note on my monitor that said boy, so I just remembered to credit the donor. Because of you, Johnny has a safe place to sleep tonight. It's about the donor, you and your, not you or the organization, my, we, or our. How do you test for this? In anything you write, Analyze it, look for those words. The recommendation that I used to say was actually what Tom said, and he would say get 2 different highlighters and highlight the yous and yours in one color, highlight the me's, we's, and ours in another. You want to see at least twice as much as your you and your color. All right, that's fine, but there's got to be a techie way to do that better. Of course there is. You've seen these word clouds, right? So now you can just take your text that you wrote, your appeal letter, your newsletter story, your social media post, plop it into a word cloud generator, and this is what you want to see. You want to see that you pop, or at least the yous and yours being bigger than the me, we's, and ours. So I linked to a free word cloud generator. There's tons out there, but a great way to get some instant analysis of, is this donor centric? Is this story focused on the donor? What's our goal with this? What's our goal with our social media posts? Just publicity, awareness, fundraising, we want to raise donations. What's really our goal? Well, I think our goal is this. I think we want to get our donors to simply say, that's amazing. You do great work. What can I do to help? What can I do to help? We want them to engage and ask that question. And maybe we tell them how to do that and they, follow a link or something, or maybe they comment and do that. But that's really our goal. And to get them to say, what can I do to help? We need to inspire them. We need that emotional response. And that comes from telling the right story, that right story. All right, so we've covered the story. That's what we want most of our messaging to be about, these stories. And we can reuse them. We can tell them from different perspectives, but make sure you have a way to get those stories. Get connected with your program staff and learn what those stories are in your organization. All right, so we can have the right message, but if we screw up the final 2, it doesn't matter because nobody's going to see it. Next is the right channel. The right channel. So when we talk about social media channels, there's lots out there. So I like to do an analogy, and it's still barely morning, at least here on the East Coast for me. So donuts. Let's do donuts. They look so good. All right, donut analogy, social media channels. I found this years ago. It's gotten a little dated, but I still love it. Put out by thepixel.com. So here's each social media platform, and the key is they're different. Right there in the middle. Each social media platform is different. That's the key. So what do? Well, here, Facebook, likes, I like donuts, sharing what we're doing. Twitter, very now, newsy, in the moment, hashtag. Pinterest, resources, recipes, those kind of things. Instagram, photo-based, right? Photo-based. LinkedIn, much more professional, skills-based, information sharing. And I have to update their slide for them because the Google Plus there has gone away. But what has really taken its place? YouTube. YouTube, now the 2nd biggest search engine, right? Right behind Google. Also owned by Google, right? YouTube, so video, that has become huge. So these are kind of our channels. These are what they're typically used for. Can we put the same piece of content all sprayed across all channels and have it be effective? No, we can't do that. But we need to maybe think about where we should be. Where we should be. Which channels are you on? Are you on all of these? Do you need to be on all of these? If you're on them all, are you doing a good job on all of them? Probably not. Unless you have a full or half-time social media manager or marketing person, it's hard. I work almost exclusively with small community-based organizations. They might have a development director half-time. The ED might be doing a bit of everything. Social media is just almost an afterthought of when I have a little time. Or we have a volunteer that manages it, but they only do it when they have time. So we just need to get it to a point where we can be consistent with it. And my question to you is, who hangs out where? All right. So who's typically on these channels? Again, this comes from that same group, and the numbers are a bit out of date, but a lot of the stats are not. All right. So Facebook, some of the key things there. Those users are a lot higher, but that age range is actually tilting higher. We're now more in like the 30s to 60s. Still a slightly more female. Twitter, younger, a bit more professional, news, conversation. YouTube, all ages, growing. Anything how-to. What can you teach? What's your how-to? What's related to your mission? LinkedIn, a bit older, more professional. Instagram, younger, visual, but also broadening. Pinterest continues to say that 80% female, but that age base is going up. So, that's a bit of the difference. There are differences between the channels. That's what I want you to see here. But you picking which channel, it's not your job. Your job is not to decide where to be. Your job is to figure out where your audience is. Where does your audience, where do your donors hang out? Do you know? Have you asked? Right? It's not your decision to make. They've already made it for that decision for you. Don't be spending time on a channel where your donors aren't. Yes, go out, stake your territory, claim your pages, but you don't have to be active all the place. If you find out that your donor base is not on Twitter, you can pin a tweet right on your Twitter page that says, thank you so much for your interest. We're glad you'd like to know more about us. We're not very active on Twitter, but we encourage you to check out our webpage, our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, wherever you are active. Send people to the right place. But you don't have to be everywhere, especially if your audience is not there. How do you know this? Well, you got to know your donor avatar. Right? It's your donor avatar. What does your typical donor act like, behave? What are their characteristics? Do you know that? So the average US donor, the last time I saw it, and my apologies to my Canadian friends, but I think your stats are fairly similar. But the average US donor is a 62-year-old college-educated female. All right, 62-year-old college-educated female. So based on your mission, based on your donor base, how do you skew from that? Younger, older, different interests. For a number of years, I was the director of development for one of the largest antique automobile museums in the country. So there, my donor base skewed a bit. It was a little older. It was a bit more male, a lot more male, and it was not quite as educated. So I had to address my messaging and my social channels around that. Back in those days, this was over a decade ago, we didn't really do much social because they weren't really there. So what's your donor avatar? That will tell you where to be. I know my audience. I know where the executive directors of small community-based nonprofits hang out. It's primarily Facebook, so that's where I put the bulk of my effort. Do you know yours? Do you know yours? Have you asked? It's a great little survey. Ask your donors where they hang out online. It's something they can do to help you that does not involve giving money. It's a touch point. So just survey, figure out where your donors are, and then focus. Do you need to be everywhere? Please don't be. I would much rather see you focus 1 to 2 channels where your donors hang out and really be effective and engaging there. Do some of the things we're going to get to as we talk about doing posts in the right format and that get engagement. So concentrate, focus on where you can be the most effective, where your donors are. So fundraisers do not have to utilize every social media channel tool, but multi-channel communication and engagement is the new way of donor relations. Put out by the think tank Rogari last year. You don't have to be everywhere, but they all have to work together. It's great if they get an appeal letter that tells a story, and then they see that same story on social media and it reminds them, and it all kind of works together and integrates. We don't have to create all this different messaging on different channels. It should all work together to tell one seamless story. Maybe on social we have some video that backs up that story in our newsletter or other pieces. Use the tools as they're intended. All right, so those are our channels. That's the easy piece. You just got to figure out where your donors are. Get those stories. So now we have our stories. We know what channel we're going on. We just got to get it out there in the right format for that channel. So let's look at that. What format for each channel? We're going to hear a common trend here is video. Video is king. Every single channel really loves video right now. And I'm going to provide some tips on what kinds of video, how to think about doing video. And it's not polished video. It's not I'm contracting with a editor or a videographer and we're producing these $5,000 vignettes. No, it's this, organic, raw video of actual stuff going on, of the program being delivered, of behind the scenes things. That's what we want. But Facebook, it wants images, it wants video for sure, and native video. Facebook does not want your YouTube link. it wants a direct upload. The algorithm's going to like that a lot more. Twitter, it wants short, it wants hashtags, it likes images, it likes videos, same thing. Pinterest, it's got to have a resource, a download, something that's going to help me. Instagram, that is definitely the image, right? It's right there. Insta, it's a gram, it's got the camera in there. I see people put, text and boring things and screenshot, no, striking image. People are scrolling through there super fast. It's got to be a striking image that gets them to stop. Human faces work great on Instagram. And LinkedIn, same thing. It's really starting to like video too, but that's going to be more instructional video. Images work well there, and articles, especially articles directly put up on their format. And YouTube, it's got to be video, right? It's the only thing it takes. So that's what goes on the channel, but yet sometimes we do that spray and pray approach where we just say, hey, just I'll put it up everywhere, one shot, same exact message on all channels. We've got to stop doing that, all right? Why does that happen? I think a lot of it comes down to that we use, here's these things, we showed them in the beginning. In each of these situations, I think the organizations were using something like a buffer or a Hootsuite, these tools that let us schedule our social media posts ahead of time and then click which channels we want it to go to. It kind of all looks the same. Well, that's my word of caution. That's my warning, all right? That's my warning. You can't do that. You got to adjust it. You're wasting your time. Within each of these, there's actually a setting that you can adjust the posts for each channel. You can change the image. You can make it shorter on Twitter, longer on Facebook. You can do that. You just have to go in, adjust those settings. So these are great tools. They let you schedule and get your posts out when your audience is most active, but don't be lazy with it. Use it as a tool to help you that way, not as a tool that I can just do it all in one click, because that's all I have time for. If that's all you have time for, you'd have much more success going to the channel natively and uploading it directly there. So that's what I'm saying more and more, post natively, especially with video. Go to the platform, enter it, see what it's actually going to look like there. I've seen conflicting stories on, does usually using these social media alligators actually hurt your post in the algorithm? Does it not? It's up in the air. I think it switches back and forth a lot, but you will never be penalized for posting natively. And especially if we're going to pare down and just focus on one or two channels where our donors actually are, this becomes much more realistic. And this is especially true with video. Uploading a video directly to Facebook, LinkedIn, IGTV on Instagram, that's going to be much more effective than just posting that YouTube link. So post natively. All right, I keep saying video. I think I've said it at least 12 times now. And I know if we were live, I would see some cringes out there of, oh, one more thing. I don't have time to do video. I don't have time to edit that, get it up there. I already showed. It's this thing. We all carry around high resolution video cameras in our pockets, in our handbags, all the time. It's just using them. Quick little snippets. One of my favorite things is something like, hi, Jim. I hope you're doing good. I'm here at the opening of the program you funded through our organization. I just want to say thank you. I know you couldn't be here, but I wanted you to see firsthand that we're launching. See how excited the kids are. You made this happen. We couldn't do it without you. And how effective is that, right? You took Jim there. Is Jim going to be more supportive? Is he excited? Definitely. So that's the kind of video we're talking about. Get people there, real organic. Why video? 1/3 of online activity is spent watching video. Facebook native video posts have twice the level of engagement of other post types. Twice. Social video generates 12 times more shares than text and images combined. 12 times. People like video. The algorithm likes video. Give them video. Google found that more than half the people who watched YouTube videos posted by nonprofits go on to make a donation. If somebody's going to actually go to your YouTube channel and site and watch videos, they are very likely to follow your call to action and go there if you are doing compelling story-based video. Shout out to Julia Campbell for these stats she shared. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her later. She's a great book out that I think will help you. Again, this is do-it-yourself video, not polished, all right? Use that cell phone, use those tools, use your webcam, do a little screen capture, just talk. Seeing great fireside chats these days with like nonprofit executive directors and program staff, just talking about what's going on. You know, what have we done in the last 4 months to really respond to the way things have changed? How's that impacted our organization? It doesn't have to be savvy and polished. Turn on a webcam, have a chat, that kind of thing. So what are some other video content ideas? You can interview your beneficiaries, the people you help. What did this mean to you? Let them tell their own story. You don't have to tell it for them. Interview a donor. Ask them why they give. You know, it's an incredibly powerful experience for them, and it can inspire other potential supporters. Go live at programs. Take people there. You know, just like I did with Jim as a recording, and maybe I emailed that to him. I can do a general one for all donors, and either live stream it to Facebook or maybe then upload it after. Just go behind the scenes. A lot of our donors don't get to the places we go all the time and take for granted. You know, even an office tour could be a little interesting. You know, show them where we store the program supplies, what it looks like. People are interested in little odd things, you know, especially my arts organizations that are maybe a little quiet these days. Take them behind the scenes. Show them the costume shop, show them the prop storage, whatever. Show them the instruments. Take them there. It's something we can do. Event recaps, you know, after we do something, once we can do more live events, do a little montage. Year in review, maybe piece together some of our video footage from throughout the year. Share that. That's not too much work. So those are some easy ways we can look at sharing more video. All can be done with this thing. Don't take a lot of work. And when we post that natively, the algorithms are going to really like us and get more organic reach, show it to more of the people that like our page. Just because someone likes our page and we post something doesn't mean they see it. No, they have to have engaged with our content, they have to like things, and we need to be posting the right kind of content for that channel. So video will help you with that. So with all of this, you know, we can have the best of intentions, but I really find unless you plan it out, it frequently doesn't happen. Right? Plan it out. Take some time. Here's my shout out to Julia. She's one of the greatest social media gurus in the nonprofit space. If you haven't checked out her stuff, I encourage you to do it. I know she's presented for Nonprofit Hub in the past and has, I believe, keynoted Cause Camp in the past. So great guru, they get it. You should follow her if you're not. She recently put out a book that can really help you with planning social media, how to build and mobilize a social media community for your nonprofit in 90 days. So encourage you to check that out, grab it. I have it linked up on the resources page if you want to dive deep here. And I think this is a great time to dive deep on social media because we're a little limited in how we can engage with donors these days. And donors are on social media far more than they are, you know, when they're working outside of the home and other things. So it's a great time to really amp up your social media presence. The other planning tool I really encourage you to use is an editorial calendar. And not just for social media. Social media should be a component of this. So I have a template on the resources page that you can grab, but it's a simple tool. You can create it in Excel. The way I like to do it is going down the left column, put the weeks of the year. So 1 through 52. Then across the top, I put all my channels. So I'll have, you know, on here we just have social media, but I could break it out to Facebook and Instagram, wherever we're at. But then also having things like our print newsletter, our e-blasts, our events. And in each one of these blocks, I want to put some type of content idea, something we're going to share. And the key with this is we can repeat it. You know, it can start at the e-blast, and then it can go on to social media, and then it can be stored in our print newsletter. Don't only share a great story once. Don't worry about repeating it too many times. If donors hear the same story multiple times, they usually react very favorably. They say, oh yeah, there's that great story of Martha and how the organization I love really helped her. They do great work. Her story is amazing. You know, they get kind of that warm fuzzy again. So let them have that experience multiple times. If something really resonated this year, do the same thing next year. Just update it a little bit. So often we don't do social media well because we think it has to be new every single time. And we don't reuse that great content. So think through that, map it out, fill in the boxes. You know, if it comes up on your to-do list, social media post, you know, a Facebook post every Tuesday afternoon, that comes up and you don't know what to do, that's a hard task. That pops up and it's planned out, You just go look at the editorial calendar. Oh, that's right, we're doing that. Click over, find it, post it, little note, it can be 5 minutes. Whereas it might take a half hour if I got to come up with something from scratch. So take the time, plan it out. I like to pull this up about quarterly, update it, be working out maybe 6 months or so. Other things that happen, you see that first column, organizational events / theme. What is going on in the world or with our organization? Holidays, awareness days. Pretty much every cause is going to have a couple awareness days throughout the year that are directly related or maybe tangentially related that we can kind of hop on the bandwagon for. So let that help you plan what you're going to talk about. All right, we're going to move into most effective posts and more engagement. So these are the kind of things we want to think about. Bite-sized stories. Taking those stories that we talked about in the beginning, making them bite-sized. I like to share a paragraph or two, not much more than what's going to show in Facebook, and then have a link to click over to maybe our website to read the full story. Raw native video. Said it multiple times. We'll keep saying it. It works. How can you get more video? Anything tied to current events. If we use the hashtags, that can help there. Those cause awareness days. If you don't know yours, awarenessdays.com. Great site, has, I think, thousands of awareness days. Just look for things related to your cause. Volunteer spotlights. These work really well. Tag your volunteers, show them, how do you get more volunteers? Spotlight the ones you currently have. How do you get more donors? Spotlight the donors you currently have. How do you get more staff? Celebrate your staff. Show that you're a supportive environment. So do some staff spotlights. And then old content that worked the first time. If it's been 6 months, feel free to reuse stuff. Donors really aren't going to remember. If they do recognize it, they're going to see it and like it again, because if you're reusing it, it was well received. It's fine. Go behind the scenes, photo, video, inspirational quote images. They seem cheesy, but they still work. People love these things. I'm going to share an example in a minute or two, but quote images work really good. And then finally, those hashtags, Motivation Monday, Flashback Friday, Sunday Fun Day, especially if you're consistent with these, can work well too. And just kind of hop on a little bit of the bandwagon, fill in a content idea for you and work really well. So those are some post ideas. A lot of people I know take this slide and kind of save the image and just have it as when my mind goes blank and I need to do a social media post, is there something on here that I could do today? So here's an example of one of those volunteer spotlights. So this was a mission team. They're just showing what that actually looks like, all right? And they're saying how grateful they are with it. People love to see action shots and faces, eyes, people working together, all right? Really effective. Here's those quote images. I actually do some of these on my social, so these are a little fundraising related, and the top one is my favorite fundraising adage, especially when it comes to writing like fundraising appeal letters. Personal preference seldom equates to fundraising best practice. What we like doesn't matter. It's what's effective that matters. You might not like all the things we're talking about today of, oh, that's cheesy, or I don't want to do it that way. That doesn't matter. What matters is what's effective. That's what we need to do. So these are very easy to create. I use a simple tool called Pablo. So that's put out by Buffer. As right there, as it says, create engaging social media images in under 30 seconds. They have all these great backgrounds. I'm just plopping my logo on and putting in the text, saving it as an image, and I'm all set. So very easy. You don't need a graphic designer to do this. I know many people love Canva as well. Canva has free templates for all the platform. I just like Pablo because it's a little simpler and I just do this one thing with it and works really well. So I have Pablo linked up on the resources page as well. Okay, we're going to start winding down here so we can get to your questions. I want to close with boosting engagement. All right, we put out a great post, but that's not enough. We need to get people to engage with it if we want our folks to actually see it. The folks that like it, our page, aren't going to see it unless it's getting good engagement. We're going to encourage the algorithm to show it to our loyal folks and hopefully even other folks through some organic reach. And then some examples of how have some organizations done just that. Grab a quick sip of water here. Okay, nonprofit Facebook posts reached fewer users relative to their audience size in 2019. An average post reached 9,100 users for every 100,000 followers a nonprofit had. So a lot of numbers in there, a lot of things going on. It's from the M&R benchmark study, came out earlier this year. Most organizations I work with and know don't have 100,000 followers, so I'm boiling that down to actual math. So basically the thing is, if you had 1,000 Facebook followers, your average post, only 9.1 people would see that, unless you do some things to boost engagement. So that's why we're focusing on boosting the engagement. Number one rule is you just have to show up, okay? You can't post and think you're done. I know many organizations that go in every Tuesday afternoon, do their Facebook post, see who liked last week's, and then they're not on the channel at all. That's not going to get engagement. You have to interact. If somebody says a comment, you have to reply. Try to get that conversation going. That's what you want. If you're saying you don't have the time to do this, then you need to be on fewer channels. Maybe go down to one channel where you can actively engage and spend. It can be 10 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be a ton of time, but we need to show up and actually engage with the people that like us, love us, and want to support us. Our real goal with engagement is to get them to comment. Comment. So we want them to comment, not just like it, not vote in a poll, actually type something into the box and hit enter. That's what we need them to do. The algorithm rewards that far more than just somebody hitting like or voting. Sharing is definitely rewarded as well, but often easier to get them to comment than it is to actually share it with their own audience. So what can we do to kind of get them to comment? I love to ask open-ended questions. Let's put up, we have been fighting the cause of XYZ. How do you stand up for these people in your own life? Just ask people to share their own story a little bit. Open-ended. A yes or no will work, but an open-ended response will definitely get even more engagement. So I like non-ask, quick calls to action, where you can actually say, comment yes or no below. Don't do a poll where they just click either way. Actually get them to yes or no. If you have a stream of 75 comments below a post, a lot of the people that follow you are going to be seeing that. And the more we do that, then they're going to see our other posts that don't do that as well. And finally, what do you do when they actually engage? When somebody actually does what you ask them to do, when somebody does a random question out to your page, that's our goal. They're raising their hand saying, how can I help? Right? They're doing what we want them to do. You need to show them the love. Show them the donor love. Steward them, be so thankful, engage with them. Send them a sticker or whatever it is, but just make them feel really valued, a participant, that you really appreciate their engagement, that they shared things. Just private messaging them on Facebook and saying thank you can have a huge impact on those social folks that really are out there helping to share your message. All right, I want to get to some questions. Before I do that, let's look at a few successful examples. I could share tons of successful examples, but these are a few that I've kind of liked over the years and can kind of show how folks do this good combination of the right story on the right channel in the right format, and then use that to really get some good engagement. So just a couple examples through a variety of channels. So here's a little bit on kind of how you might work with a current event. So this is the National Women's Law Center. And this was on the Oscars, I believe 2018 Oscars. And they put up this post. If you stop any woman on the street and say, hey, how is it with you and your mom? It's going to be a really long answer. And I feel like you should make movies about things that have long, complicated answers. Said by Greta Gerwig. So that was a quote in her Oscars interview. They post that and they say, this is what women telling stories looks like. So that's always one of their messages, is women telling stories, expand the possibilities. And they hopped on this, they put it out there. They didn't do much work. They were just timely, and they went right on top of that, and they look what they got. 991 likes, 264 retweets, right? It got engagement, it got shares for sure. Current events. This is more of a campaign and visual campaign that can kind of work and can kind of be, a little edgy or striking. Sometimes helps. We don't always have to play nice in the box. We can make people think. So this is Know Your Lemons, breast cancer awareness charity, I believe UK based. And they did this campaign, had an app, all kinds of things, but Know Your Lemons. So we have all these phrases out there of what to look for. You know, every kind of cancer has these, you know, self-checks and things we should be doing. But, you know, they decided to illustrate it, to give people a little help and make, you know, have some lemons, right? It's a little different. So this went out there. They got incredible engagement over this. I read the case study. I think it was 8 times the normal engagement of their annual campaign. This just went really well. You know, they were on that line of, is this crass? Is this too much? But they were actually thanked by people that said, oh, now I actually know what that means. Thanks for helping me understand. All right. So we can be a little edgy. This, Instagram, British Red Cross put it out. Thank you to Rusty Bear 2012 and all those knitting trauma teddies for the Red Cross to help comfort children in hospitals. Power of kindness. So they hopped on a hashtag. I love what they're doing this. They're thanking a volunteer that's doing this. They're showing us a very striking image. You see this as you're scrolling through Instagram. You're going to stop and pause and say, oh, all right, that's cool. How do you get more volunteers? You know, they obviously want more trauma teddies. So we thank the people that are already doing it. We show them, you know, and look at some of the engagement here. Do you need more knitted toys or hats? You know, it's popping in right there. People that want to help. All right. Works great, Instagram. Here we go again. Something simple, striking image. All right. Collect daily essentials for homeless shelters. You're going to see that as you go along. It's just words on an image. With the extreme cold of the polar vortex a couple years back, your homeless shelter may be filled to capacity and in desperate need of everyday essentials. Join a movement. So this is a call to action. It's not as much of a story, but this can be interspersed with some of those stories. Perhaps before this, we have the story of, you know, a shelter being too full and, you know, maybe Joe couldn't get in. You know, we share something and then we show how you can help a bit after that. Here's another Facebook campaign. Shout out to Josh Hirsch, who now runs social media for Susan G. Komen National. Time he was at Susan G. Komen, Florida. And they put together this campaign. It was a bigwig campaign. So it was a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign where they got folks in the community during Breast Cancer Awareness Month to put on a pink wig, you know, social media, and really try to raise awareness. So meet Susan G. Komen, Florida bigwig, firefighter with Palm Beach Gardens Fire Rescue, enjoys giving back to the community that raised him, support David's campaign, help him become the biggest bigwig. You know, they did this with lots of people across the community, started getting real good engagement. You can see over there on the right, I'm a warrior in pink. I'm a survivor. People were sharing their stories. Josh himself actually wore a pink wig that whole month, so I was really glad when that was all over and didn't have to see that anymore on Zoom calls. But we can be creative and we can tell stories through that creativity. So first responders to breast cancer, get a little campaign there as well. So think outside the box and then be multi-channel. So this was Facebook, there were videos, there were live streams, all kind of things, and they told the stories of survivors, that people they were helping, and they got that engagement because, oh my gosh, there's David, I know him, look, he's wearing a pink wig. Got that talk and chatter going. And then my final example is the one I love the most out of all of these. So this is Project Somos, I believe does some ESL work with recent immigrant children. This is on their Instagram feed. So first of all, you're scrolling through and you see this image of kids staring at something. It's striking. You kind of want to look and see, what are they looking at? What's engaging them? Believe me, it's hard to engage kids in anything. So they are engaged. What are they doing? All right. And here's our post. Last week, our monthly supporters had the opportunity to do a live video chat with 6 of our students. The Somos kids got to practice their English, and the donors got to ask questions about their experience here. Thanks to all who participated. We look forward to our next visit. So I love this on so many levels. It's a great image, but then also, what does it say at the beginning? Monthly supporters. Talk about our monthly supporters. Just like, how do you get more volunteers? How do you get more donors? How do you get more monthly supporters? You talk about the ones you already have. So we're showing that this is an opportunity for our monthly supporters. So they got to chat, to talk with the beneficiaries. The organization got out of the middle and they let their beneficiaries, the kids, talk with the donors. So this is exactly putting you and your forward. Because of you, we're going to connect you directly with them and get out of the way. And then the kids got to practice their English with the donors. So they're actually doing their mission with the donors. The donors are helping by letting them practice. So a great post, really tied to mission, really forward that way. Just a good sense and a good way to wrap up that we're telling our story through the kids visually. You know, we could have had a little interview here. We could have had a little, you know, video capture of one or two of the questions. That could be good follow-up posts, but a great piece, and kudos to Project Somos Village for that great work. All right, that is the end of our content. That is how we tell the right story on the right channel, in the right format, and then we work to boost engagement on our posts so they are actually seen. We're gonna move to Q&A in a second. Again, I just wanna thank you for your work, for being fundraiser, being nonprofit professionals. We all know there are far easier careers, but we have a heart for the work we do and for the communities we serve. So I give a shout out and a thank you to you for that. If you're interested in learning more from me, our current things going on in fundraising, I'm Fundraiser Chad on all of the social channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can find me on all of those. Again, my name is Chad Barger. Barger rhymes with charger. I always help people out there a little bit. And if you'd like to learn more, I do have a weekly email blast. I always had this problem when I was a frontline fundraiser that I had the best of intentions of reading all this stuff that I subscribe to, learning, but then I never had time for it. So now that I'm a consultant and I have time to look a little more big picture, I like to pull out the best thing I read each week, and that's what I typically share with my audience. So a simple e-blast, that's of interest, feel free to subscribe. On my website, I have a free resource library with tons of templates. I shared a couple of them today, but there's probably about 50 out there. Feel free to check that out. And if you're in a really small shop and you just don't have anyone to talk fundraising with, you don't have anybody where you can say, hey, I had this crazy idea. Do you think this might work? Or, you know, do you know a resource? Do you know a vendor for this? That's what I found a lot of my clients and the groups I work with had an issue with. So I put together a private Facebook group. It's called the Fundraising Buzz Fest. You can apply to join that. It's basically just to keep all the salespeople out. My sole job is to moderate that and encourage a bit of discussion. But we have over 500 fundraising professionals and volunteers and nonprofit EDs in there, just kind of having that conversation about what's working for fundraising in your community. So I encourage you to check that out as well. All of those are linked up on the resources page, as well as my monthly free webinar. I do one each month, and my July webinar comes up next week on the 29th at 1 Eastern, and we're gonna talk sponsors. And I'm actually kind of taking this word event out of it. And we're talking sponsors, how to find them, create a win-win, and moving from one-time event sponsorships to building more of a year-round corporate partnership program, because I think that's the direction we need to be going, especially in the time when we can't maybe do our traditional fundraising events. So if that's a challenge at your organization, I encourage you to check that out. Join me next week. All of those resources are on the website, productivefundraising.com/resources. So again, I thank you all, and I'm going to open it up for questions.
Wow, you pretty much had questions right out of the gate, so we may be here a while.
Sounds good. I have time. You're just keeping me from lunch, and I'm not starving yet, so all good.
I might get hangry though, so just so you know. Let's see. First of all, you lit a fire already. Someone is going to create a calendar today, so that's Megan. Go for it. Awesome. Love that. You have a lot of things around hashtags. Can you have too many hashtags in a row? Does it look unprofessional, et cetera, et cetera? Talk about a little bit more about hashtags.
Yeah, hashtags can work. You know, I encourage you to do some research on hashtags that might work. I've used a tool called Keywords Everywhere from time to time to look at research on, you know, what hashtags do people actually search for, not just what do I think people search for. So one of my favorite things to do with hashtag is, or find a few that are appropriate, but then rather than having it directly in the post, on many of the platforms, having it as the first comment with your hashtags in the first comment can work really well. So it kind of doesn't clutter it up, but it still ties those hashtags to your post. So something to consider that way.
All right. We've had a number of posts around the fact, well, let's address this one. This one's pretty interesting. they use social media both for the people they serve and for donors. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I get this question pretty much every time I do this presentation, so I probably need to put something in there about it. But well, many of us have split audiences, right? So we do have that donor base, which might be interested in different things than our supporters, where we might need to be having more education and instruction and resources. So it really depends on the size of your organization. If you have the capacity, I have seen organizations actually have 2 pages. Where they might have a Facebook page for the beneficiaries, for the clients, and one for the donors. Or, that can be a little bit of clutter. They might have a group that they encourage, the beneficiaries to join. So maybe everything's more programmatic, overview, sharing stories on our Facebook page. And then maybe once a week, once every other week, we kind of do a post about, if you're looking for help and resources, or you're struggling with this, click to join this free resource group, where in there we're talking about how we can actually help them and those kind of things. So, but then our donors are also seeing those posts where we're saying, hey, if you need help, go here. So they're seeing us actively serving on the page. And then from time to time, you can kind of cross share between the two, that you can share a group post in a group back to the page. So some kind of separation sometimes works because it allows you to go deeper with each group, but it creates more work. Bottom line, figure out where they're at, just be there. If we can segment a little bit, then think about how that might work for your organization. But great question.
Have you ever searched by a hashtag? I'm trying to think if I've ever done that.
Yeah, so I mean, on Twitter, I think it's more following people will do, like following a hashtag on Instagram.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I do that. I do
Twitter.
follow hashtags.
Yeah, I think that's, you're going to get, if you use the right hashtag that people actually follow, perhaps if they go deep enough in their feed, they may see you.
Let's see. Okay, we have a number of nuanced questions around the fact that there's someone that works with homelessness, and those folks don't want to be photographed. We have other private organizations that don't want to be photographed. What do I post?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would still go visual. So you still need to do something. You're just not going to be able to be, having the client directly forward. Now I have seen groups that will do like, they're behind a screen telling their story, something like that, where we can respect protecting their identity. I've seen a lot of domestic violence causes do things like that. But you still need to be visual. So if we can't show them directly, could we perhaps take somebody, put somebody in their shoes? Can we go into the kitchen? Could we be, in the food line or something like that? Should we show what the food distribution is going to look like? So we're still respectful to our people, that we're trying to, not patronize or all these. We want to respect that, but we need to take people there and show them the experience. So you still have things you can show, even if it's not the person themselves. But from time to time, if you can get permission and you can share, a smiling face, somebody that's been through the program, they're out of it, and now they want to pay it back. One of the greatest ways they can pay it back is just to tell their story, show their image, and really be out there for your organization. Have a couple of those case studies we can use from time to time.
Here's a little something that I think is also just off of what we were just talking about here, but we have a children's care village in the Congo for orphan children, and we don't feel comfortable sharing individual stories of these children. How can we alter how we tell our story and still engage donors emotionally?
Yeah, that's tough because we've seen it time and time again with science that it is the story of one person, one individual person whose life was changed. That is the most resonant thing. We start getting the bigger numbers and talking about programs and science and those kind of, it just doesn't do it. It doesn't tug on the heartstrings, and fundraising is emotional. So I like to maybe say, in that situation that you still tell stories, you don't do names, but you say things like, in the past, we've had children that have gone through this kind of situation. Or, we recently worked with a person, a child who unfortunately had to experience this. So we need to really paint the picture of what happened, but then perhaps we can focus on the success stories more. Of this person, had a great time with our organization, went through the program, did exactly what they were supposed to do, and now they're living, a fulfilling life, those kind of things. So focusing more on the success rather than, in the middle in the work, which we can't highlight as much. So it's tough. You're going to have to do both, but I understand that sometimes we can't directly do it.
Let's see here. So many things. How often should I post? Is a couple of times a day too much?
Okay. Well, the key with posting frequency in everything that I've seen is consistency. So you can post as much or as little as you want. I would say probably once a week is a minimum for most organizations, just to be relevant and on there. But what the algorithm does is it rewards consistency. So if you are posting 3 days a week consistently, it will start to give you a little bit more reach on those, show it to more of your audience. So my question, I'm going to flip it back to you. What can you do consistently? If you're posting multiple times a day, for a week, and then you go dark and only post once next week, you'll actually be penalized more for that than the boost you got from that flurry of activity. So what can you be consistent with? I find most groups it's kind of once a day, 3 times a week, unless you have that dedicated, social media person or marketing person that can be a little more consistent than that.
Yeah, and Stephen Chaddock always talks about making sure it's relevant.
Yep.
So don't create a schedule for yourself that you can't put out relevant content.
Right. Don't be a robot.
Yeah. Let's see, with the prevalence of fake news, here we go. You can't choose a photo to accompany a link on Facebook that's not actually on that linked page. Is it better to have a compelling photo without a live link, just having a link in the body of the post, or a live link without a compelling photo?
Yeah, that's certainly a challenge. I don't have firm data on here, but I always err on the side of photo, just because I'm always thinking of the scroll, and we're on social media, we're scrolling. You gotta have something striking that gets them to stop and pause. So, I would almost rather, have the image, talk about it, and send them there some other way. I don't have the science behind that, but I know that's me. I know that's how most people I know use social. So that's what I want to rely on, is that image.
All right, here's one about tone. How do we decide tone? We provide educational support for homeless K through 12 students. Do we tell a somber story or an upbeat one? Which is the most effective?
Right. Yeah, and I've seen storytelling experts go all over the place on this. I think the key is balance. I would prefer to be more upbeat, talking about the change we've made in the world, and talking a little bit about the solution, but more talking about, or talking a bit about the problem, but more talking about the solution and how things have fixed, how we fix them, and then saying, with your help, we can help more kids this way. We can help more people in our community. But sometimes, unfortunately, the reason all those commercials are still on TV with the animals in conditions that we don't want to see, with, I don't know if it's still Sarah McLachlan playing in the background, but why are those TV commercials still out there? Because they work, right? They create an emotional response that leads to action. So I think sometimes we maybe do have to be a bit more direct, and maybe it's not being inflammatory or anything, but maybe taking donors a bit in the shoes of the people we serve. Maybe more, did you realize, do you know that many of the people we serve fight this situation on a day-to-day basis? Something that donors would never think about. So maybe we can be educational and take them, kind of put them in their shoes a bit. So definitely a hard balance. I err on the side of positivity just because I think I'm a bit of a glass half full kind of person, but I think there's a level of balance that needs to take place with that.
All right. Here's a couple that kind of go together. Someone works at a museum and it's hard time with storytelling because we don't necessarily directly help someone to pull on the heartstrings. And then Eric also has a situation where they benefit an organization that is for a greener city. So kind of similar kinds of questions where you don't have a direct human necessarily to work with. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I too spent some time in the museum field, and yeah, you can take people behind the scenes, show them artifacts and things, but for the story, I would certainly focus on, like school groups coming through and the kids and those kind of things, but sometimes I would go to the story behind the artifact, the story behind the item, and, really kind of work with the curator, work with folks that knew that, work with the educator and say, all right, well, why is this here? Everything in here has a story. Well, how can I get to that compelling story and maybe share a little bit of those? I have a client down in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, that's a local historical society, and they do a great job of this. That, they have like, there's a random cannonball that was wedged in a tree for like 150 years before they found it when cutting down the tree, and it was from the battle, and they can just tell the story. When you show the image, it's just a boring cannonball like all the others, but there's this backstory behind it. So I think talking through that. And then on the other question, it's getting to the root story no matter what. So for many years, I ran a United Arts Fund, so an organization that raised funds on behalf of about 20 different arts groups. So we weren't the ones conducting the theater camps or the concerts or doing the art installations. We were just raising the money that helped those organizations. So we didn't talk about granting money to those organizations. We didn't talk about the process and the mechanics. That was all the middle, the stuff that gets in the way. We talked about their programs. And we talked about how without the fund support, they wouldn't be able to do this educational outreach program, that our funding took them to the next level. So it was still connecting to that end beneficiary, but it was just 2 levels away instead of just 1. So getting to that root person, place, or thing that you're helping, even if you're not doing it directly, is key.
We could probably go at this for a really long time.
Well, and I will say, Randy, I'm more than happy to answer direct questions if we didn't have time to get to ones that the folks submitted. If you just want to tweet or Instagram or find me on Facebook, I'm happy to respond to any direct questions that way.
I'll leave you with this one though. What kind of photos or videos, and maybe add this other question into it, what's the ideal video length? That was a question too, but what kinds of photos or videos can we post if we are currently not physically engaging with our clients?
Yeah, I've heard that a little bit in the current reality. It's one of those, I wish we were doing this 3 years ago, so we had this archive of things we could share back. I'm seeing a lot of organizations do that. If we don't have that content, it's not as engaging, but you talking, your executive director talking, kind of like I said about that fireside chat, or even just a quick little 60-second update, it's still video. It might not be the most engaging video in the world, but we can talk about, what we're currently doing and how we're preparing to be able to serve organizations again. Video length, I don't include it in here because I see conflicting information all the time. I think anything can work. It's figuring out what works for your audience. So I like to err on the side of like a 2 to 3 minute piece, just because I find that's what most people will actually take the time to watch. However, for organizations, especially that are a bit more educational in nature, like that museum, like research facilities, doing a half-hour educational program where the expert's talking about it, you have audience members that will listen and watch that. So I think it's knowing your audience, but if you don't know, I'd start kind of shorter and small and go from there.
Well, thank you so much, Chad. I cannot even believe some of the comments that you're getting. You got blessed at one point with an LOL. I don't know what that was or what you exactly said at that time. I missed that, but we have had a lot of humans on here talking at Nonprofit Hub about social media, and you've gotten some of this is the best social media conversation that I've heard. So congratulations for that. And thank you for sharing your talents with us here today and with all of the people listening. And thanks to all of the people that have tuned in. I really appreciate you being here. Go out and do some awesome stuff now that you know how to social media better. Thanks a lot, Chad.
Sure thing, Randy. Happy fundraising, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.